The diesel fumes hung thick in the Scottish air as Flight Sergeant David McLean squinted through the binoculars at the twisted wreckage scattered across Eaglesham Moor. May 10, 1941. The Messerschmitt's fuselage lay crumpled, like a discarded cigarette pack, its swastika barely visible through the char and mud. But it wasn't the plane that made McLean's hands tremble as he adjusted the focus. It was the man sitting calmly in the farmhouse kitchen, sipping tea as if he'd dropped by for a social call, rather than parachuted alone from Nazi Germany into the heart of wartime Britain. Rudolf Hess, the prisoner had announced to the bewildered Scottish farmer who'd found him stumbling through the heather. Deputy Führer of the German Reich, I have come to make peace. 3 floors beneath Whitehall, the bunker's fluorescent lights flickered with each distant rumble of the Luftwaffe's nightly assault on London. Churchill's war room reeked of stale tobacco and urgent sweat. The Prime Minister, as cigar smoke created ghostly spirals in the yellow light as he stared at the decoded intercepts spread across the oak table. Impossible, muttered Colonel Stuart Menzies, his fingers drumming against the classified folder marked Operation Yellow. Hitler's right-hand man doesn't simply fly solo missions to enemy territory. The radio crackled in the corner static mixed with the distant Morse of German naval commands. But tonight, something was different. For months, MI6 had been intercepting fragments of communications between high-ranking Nazi officials and someone in Britain. Always the same call sign, Nightingale. Churchill's eyes narrowed through the haze. What if he wasn't acting alone? In cell 14Z of the Tower of London, Rudolf Hess sat in perfect stillness. The stone walls wept with centuries of dampness, and somewhere in the maze of corridors, footsteps echoed, always footsteps, always watching. Major Frank Foley leaned forward across the metal table, his breath visible in the May chill. Let's try this again, Herr Hess. You claim you came here on a peace mission. To see the Duke of Hamilton, a man you'd never met. Hess's pale eyes remained fixed on something beyond the cell wall. When he finally spoke, his English was precise, careful. There are forces at work, Major, that even you cannot comprehend. Secrets within secrets. The war, it is not what it appears. What forces? A long pause. Outside, air raid sirens began their nightly wail. I carried no papers, Hess whispered. But I carried something far more dangerous. Information that could rearrange the chessboard entirely. Foley's pen froze mid-sentence. What information? But Hess had retreated back into silence, his fingers tracing invisible patterns on the scarred table surface patterns that looked disturbingly like mathematical equations. The intercepted radio transmission arrived at Bletchley Park at 0347 hours on May 15th, 5 days after Hess's arrival. Mavis Beatty, her eyes red from hours of staring at cipher wheels, nearly dropped her tea when the decryption materialized on her typewriter. Nightingale compromised. Abort sequence 7. Destroy all records. Hess knows nothing. Repeat. Hess knows nothing. The message bore the seal of the Abwehr German military intelligence, but the transmission point wasn't Berlin or Hamburg. It was London. Mavis's hands shook as she reached for the red telephone. Someone within the highest circles of British intelligence was communicating directly with Nazi Germany. And Rudolf Hess, whether he knew it or not, had stumbled directly into the middle of a conspiracy that reached to the very top of both governments. Present day, the files remain sealed. Official records claim Hess flew to Britain in a delusional attempt at peace negotiations. He spent the rest of his life in Spandau prison, dying in 1987 under circumstances that still spark debate. But in a dusty corner of the National Archives, 3 documents remain classified at the highest level, not scheduled for release until 2041, exactly 100 years after that strange May night. Local farmers near Eaglesham still report finding metal fragments in their fields, pieces of aircraft that don't match any known Messerschmitt design. And sometimes, late at night, When the wind is right, they hear it, a faint sound of Morse code, tapping from somewhere beneath the Scottish moor. Tap, 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 dash, tap, dash, tap. The rhythm never changes. It never stops. And it's not in German.